I'm a black man. I met Black Sage a couple years ago, and his words blew my mind. He made me realise how much I didn't know. So we linked up and started BMSG. BMSG believes its duty is to improve the black community we belong to by standing on the shoulders of the older generations. BMSG is for the black man who values wisdom, experience, and knowledge.
All my brothers hear me. Head of BMSG, yeah. If you're feeling like you lost sight, if you're feeling life just ain't right, when you need a little light, it's your survival guide.
Wilfred Zaha.
He smells a rat. They say that Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter don't matter to them. What's clear to me, in my thoughts, is that Zaha has been on the internet. He's been onto the Black Lives Matter website. He's seen the Black Lives Matter interviews. He's seen things where Black Lives Matter are pushing political agendas against Israel and the likes. And he says that I don't want to be a part of that. But there's this massive white supremacist, middle class, liberal movement that now they feel like they've got this body, this organization that they can join and push and say, this proves I'm not racist. And the very fact that they're using this organization to coerce black men who are uncomfortable with this organization into supporting this organization is an act of racism. That's white supremacy, white liberals imposing an idea, therefore a behavior on black men, and black men feeling uncomfortable about supporting something they're not comfortable with, but they have to do it. That is the epitome of racism.
So you're basically saying that something that's been marketed for black people, you know, to show that they're in support of black people, is actually
Anti-black.
Anti-black.
Anti-black. Most definitely. It's not the first time. The civil rights movement was like that.
Black Lives Matter movement. You know, if it was for black people, then there would be some kind of result.
Correct.
And the one question that now comes to my head after hearing what you've said is, could you speak on that? Could you say that there is some kind of result?
I see no result.
Absolutely no result.
I see no result from the Black Lives Movement for the black community. For example, have the Black Lives Matter paid for any of the funerals of the people they're campaigning on the back of? I'm not aware of it. Have Black Lives Matter put money into any grassroots organizations? I'm not aware of it. Have Black Lives Matter achieved any legal or political change? I'm not aware of it.
Talk about how it might feel for someone who is black, Caribbean, African, growing up in a place like the UK, the US, being the only black boy in the school, black girl in the class, black girl in the office, black guy in the office.
What Black Lives Matter speaks about.
But I think a lot of people have now actually it's been brought to their attention, black and white people.
What's been brought to their attention?
How some black people have felt, a lot of black people feel growing up in.
You really think that white society didn't know that already?
It's not that they didn't know, I'm saying that people may have knew that, but they now feel more confident to talk about it.
I'd say it's less that they're more confident, it's almost as though they were forced to.
I think they're talking about it less.
So you got forced to do less.
I think there's white people who are scared, excuse my French, chiseless, to speak about race now for fear of being called a racist. I think it's killed the conversation on race.
I don't know, because I don't think there was much of a conversation before, and I feel like I can see the forced perspective, because I feel like a lot of people it was unavoidable to, when George Floyd died and everyone started rioting, it was unavoidable to not talk about it.
So what conversations took place after the death of George Floyd that wasn't taking place before?
I mean, for me anyway, I've seen the video and I'm thinking, wow, this is unbelievable. The fallout over the next couple of days. It was basically the flavour of the month at that point.
Yeah.
It was the hot topic, it was the hot subject. There was a hell of a lot of information being flung about from everyone. All of the issues that have been going on in America for the longest time. Remember there was like the blackout Tuesday thing, the black square thing.
Yeah.
But was that information being flung about before, in your opinion?
It may have
No,
been,
not
but
that.
because it was the flavour, it was the hot topic of
Yeah,
the whole world
maybe,
for like
yeah.
a couple, maybe a week or so. People had to see that.
I gotta ask you a question. Who's Rodney King?
The guy that got brutally attacked by a group of police back in the 90s.
Right.
And he triggered the LA riots.
1992. First time a black man being videoed being beaten by police officers. Went worldwide. Before there was internet, it went viral. With just a camcorder and TV stations. Who's Stephen Lawrence?
I think it was just stabbed in the leg, didn't he? Couldn't move in Eltham and bled to death.
Stabbed in the back, just above the leg, yeah. Killed. Heard of Roots? Kunta Kinte? Heard of it?
Yeah.
So I've just given 3 examples there of racial things that stimulated conversation
Yeah.
going back to the 80s. We've been having these conversations. I know everybody feels like now they're having a conversation online and it started something. It didn't start anything. We've been having it for decades. Who's Malcolm X? Who's Martin Luther King? When they were killed, there were riots around America. We were having these conversations. In 1958, there was the Notting Hill riots. We got the carnival as a result of the riots.
I think it's because of the influx of social media. I think things are more. Everyone's more aware of things because it's out there a lot. It's a lot easier to see.
I wouldn't say it's easier. 1979, I think it was, or 1980, there was St. Paul's riots in Bristol. Then in 1980, there were riots in London. Then in 1985, there were riots in London. There was riots in Toxteth, Birmingham, Manchester, right? Masses of black men fighting up, uprising against the establishment, against the police. 1958, in Notting Hill, Jamaicans were coming from Brixton to Notting Hill during the riots to protect the other Caribbeans in Notting Hill. What, did they get a tweet? They didn't have no internet. They didn't have no social media. They didn't have no mobile phone. The media, mainstream media, was suppressing the information, but somehow we found out. So we've been having these conversations since the 50s, from before the 50s. People have been having it. People have been writing books. People have been doing documentaries. People have been doing poetry. People have been doing films. We've been doing it. We've been talking about it. It's I wouldn't say offensive. It's interesting that the current generation think that because of George Floyd, the discussion about racial inequality and police oppression all of a sudden started.
Yeah, I don't know if it would.
The conversation definitely hasn't started then, but because of our generation and because of social media, people almost felt like they had to, through guilt.
And what you have is white people taking the lead in fighting racism. They become the manager of the racism football team. And what is racism? White supremacy. So if the white person is at the top dictating to brown people at the bottom, then that is racism. And what we had in the fight against racism, a whole bunch of white people trying to dictate to black people how they should feel and behave about acts of racism. And if they didn't do something, then they were trying to shame black people. You saw the video of Asher D, where he was crying on Instagram, saying that people were pressuring him to come out and support Black Lives Matter. How can they challenge Asher D? Asher D is the epitome of a self-made black man, but they were trying to shame him. And this is what I'm talking about, coercing black men to suit their agenda, which doesn't benefit black men. Pushing transgenderism and lesbian and gayism helps black people how? As a culture, you have a Chinese culture, you have an Asian culture. It helps the black culture how? How does it improve the economic standing of the black community? Black Lives Matter isn't for black people. It's for white people who are guilty about what they do to black people. They want to remove black men from the center of the black community, which they say or said until they removed it off their website. For Black Lives Matter to then take issue with Israel. Why you want to upset these people? What have they done to you? What's going on in Palestine? What does that have to do with Black Lives Matter UK?
If they've made that much money, the question is, where is it going?
How revolutionary can you be if the mainstream media is supporting you?
pretty big.
That's revolutionary.